Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Decide to Move podcast. I am happy for my guest today. He comes with so much knowledge, so much information because of the fact that he has a lot of unique perspectives based on the things that he's experienced. He's here to talk to us about how to have leadership conversation, and he is a thought leader. He has his own podcast, as you can see. It's called the 30-Minute Mentors, where he's interviewed over 300 business leaders, CEOs, celebrities, athletes. I mean, the list goes on. And he's also an author, and he writes a lot about managerial skills, about leadership. And so I am happy to have him today to really talk to us about how do we have that thoughtful and leadership conversation with those that we work with. So today I have Adam Mendler with me. Hi, Adam. How are you doing today?
Monica, I'm great because I'm here with you. What an introduction. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, it's easy to introduce someone that comes with such extensive experience. So you actually did the work. It just made me concise it.
I'm excited to spend the time with you and with your audience today.
Well, thank you. So let us know, like myself, as well as the audience and listeners, who are you? A lot more details about instead of what all I just mentioned, and then a little bit about your own entrepreneur journey.
Sure. So I think you did as good a job as I could do. I don't even know if my mom could do that good of a job describing me. I might call my mom afterwards and play back that segment and ask her. But as you said, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a few different businesses. We started 3 different businesses over the years in 3 different industries. We have an office furniture company called Beverly Hills Chairs. We're the leading sellers in the country of refurbished Herman Miller Aeron chairs, Herman Miller Mira chairs is what I'm sitting in right now for this interview. Steel case leap chairs. So we take brand name chairs that customers want and normally cost over $1,000, and we sell them at about half off. So anywhere from $500 to $600 a chair. We have another company called Custom Tobacco, where you can go online and create your own fully customized private label cigars in real time. So you can design fully customized private label cigar at customtobacco.com. Then we have a software consulting business where we create custom software for clients anywhere from early stage to middle market companies. We also work with a number of nonprofits over the years. I do a lot of writing and speaking on leadership, management, marketing, entrepreneurship. I also have a podcast, which you very generously mentioned, called 30-Minute Mentors, where I go one-on-one with the most successful people in the country on how they got to the top, and more importantly, on how listeners can get to the top as well. Try to keep it to 30 minutes. Every week is a different, whether it's a founder or CEO of a household name company or celebrity or athlete or general or admiral. Try to really optimize that 30 minutes and give listeners some practical, actionable advice that they can apply to their days, to their lives, to their personal and professional endeavors.
Most definitely. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. I work with entrepreneurs that are making pivotal shifts. They are getting back in the game. They are wanting to not go through all the little things that a lot of us go through when we're first starting out our business. We make a lot of mistakes, right? And so instead of having them go through those same mistakes, give them the nuts and bolts and have a streamline of them getting to that place. And so that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. I can tell you, I've made so many mistakes. I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but we can not only spend this show just on my mistakes, we could spend your entire podcast, every episode you have, just focusing on a different mistake I've made, because every day I'm making a new mistake. I think the key is not to pretend like mistakes don't happen, but to acknowledge that mistakes do happen, to learn from them, to maintain a positive attitude, and to keep pushing forward.
Exactly. And that's actually huge because of the fact that, if you don't people think that you have to do everything perfect, and that's not true. It's actually through those imperfections when great things happen. And so for me, anytime I think something, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened to me, I stop and go, no, wait, this is happening, but that means something better is on the horizon. So I'm okay with that. So I've learned to relish and appreciate my mistakes, errors, and my failings, and look at them as a blessing to get me to the next level.
It's a great mindset.
Yeah, most definitely. So tell me, like, you've gone on the journey of being a thought leader. How did you actually get to that place?
A lot of thinking and a little bit of leadership. Just trying to marry the two. But it's kind of been an interesting journey. I started by just writing. I started by taking ideas that I had and putting pen to paper.
Okay.
I've been an entrepreneur now for a little bit over 8 years. It's crazy how time flies. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to write, and I really started doing it because I thought it would be a good opportunity to help build my businesses. I thought that by taking companies that, Beverly Hills Chairs, we sell office furniture, custom tobacco, it's an e-commerce cigar company, we have a software consulting business, taking these kind of interesting businesses and bringing them to people's attention by me personally writing articles in outlets like Forbes and Inc. and Huffington Post would help draw attention and drive business to my different companies. That didn't happen. But what happened was I really fell in love with what I was doing and fell in love with the creative process, and just so enjoyed being able to not only share the different ideas and concepts that I was writing about, but being able to help others, being able to make a difference in the lives of others at scale, being able to really impact other entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, leaders, aspiring leaders, people who want to really grow personally, professionally. That was so rewarding and fulfilling to me that I just got hooked. And when you do something that you love and that you're good at, you want to keep doing it. So when I started writing these articles and I started getting positive feedback, not only was I enjoying it, but other people were enjoying it too. It really encouraged me to just keep doing it. And I've written over 70 articles now that have been published in these different outlets. And, it's the kind of thing that it wasn't like I woke up one day and said, I want to be a thought leader, but it's like anything else in life. You're not going to wake up one day and say, I want to climb Mount Everest and then climb it the next day. More likely than not, you're going to start by getting into living a healthy lifestyle, prioritizing fitness, falling in love with working out, falling in love with a mindset of achieving, a mindset of accomplishing, start developing a passion for mountain climbing, and next thing you know, you've climbed Mount Everest. Trust me, I have not climbed Mount Everest. Just an analogy. But there are plenty of mountains that I hope to climb, and that I hope that anyone listening to your podcast, to my podcast, hopes to climb as well. And hopefully we can help them get there.
Yeah. And what I really love is the fact that you talk about mindset. And oftentimes people don't really understand that it really does start from the mind, that thought that you have. And then from there, everything else manifests from there. Because if you say, I want to climb Mount Everest, oh, I'll never be able to do that. I don't even know why I had that thought. You won't be able to do it, because if you believe that you can't, you won't ever make it there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's a question that I ask a lot of my guests on my show is, what is your best advice on how to build a winning mindset? How can leaders develop a winning mindset? And I've received a lot of interesting answers to it. And, having a winning mindset is so important to anyone and everyone, whether you're a leader of a startup company, whether you're a military leader, whether you're a leader in sports or entertainment, it doesn't matter. to be able to get to that next level of success, you need to believe that you're capable of getting there. You need to convince the people around you that they're capable of driving the organization toward the goals that are set forth. So it all starts with the power of positive thinking. I'm a very big believer in the power of positive thinking. I try to, I think, not to get too sidetracked here, but we're living in very unique times right now where there's a lot of negativity around us. There's a lot of reason to be negative. It's not negativity that's unfounded, but I think that it's important for us to try to stay as positive as possible in these times and in all times, because it does have a very big difference in the end result for all of us.
Yeah, most definitely. And, there's no such thing as getting sidetracked, because that all plays into, like, when you talk about, having that leadership conversation. And I, even from a personal and a professional way, I surround myself with like-minded and like-hearted people. It's very difficult for me to be around someone who breeds negativity, because, you're around someone and you come in and you're in a good mood, and then next thing you leave and you're like, man, everything seems so crappy. And then you think about, who did I hang around today? And, and then you can pinpoint back to that. So it's the exact same thing of really understanding from a mindset, and then who you're hanging out with is, in that regard as well. So when you were talking about leadership conversation, can you take us through the steps of that from the beginning piece? Like, how would you even, like, when would you feel like a leadership conversation is even necessary? And in what regard, because there's different variations that I think of when I think of a leadership conversation.
Can you clarify what you mean by a leadership conversation? Do you mean
that was one of the, and do this, I'll edit this out, but this is what your title is, Leadership Conversation with Thought Leader Adam Mendler. That was your title. So okay. Did you want your title to be something else? I don't know.
I just mean we can talk about being a rock and roll, Monica.
So Adam, you were talking about, talking about that as a thought leader and your journey and the things that you have gone through and the things that you've accomplished in your life, which is a lot. When it comes to leadership as a whole, what kind of things would you tell an entrepreneur when it comes to leadership? What's some of the things that you actually would look for in a good, true leader?
Monica, great question. And thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate that. There are a number of things that I think everyone should look for when it comes to finding a great leader, when it comes to prioritizing qualities in a great leader. But it all starts with the concept of leadership, which centers around the people you lead. Leadership isn't about you, it's about everyone else. And that should be the first rule that every leader understands. So as soon as leaders can fully appreciate the importance of spending their time, their energy, their focus, really dedicating themselves to the greater good, the betterment of the team, the more effective they'll be as leaders. I think that every leader and every good leader certainly starts the process from within. So I'm a very big believer that in order to be a truly great leader, you have to truly understand who you are as a person. Before you can lead others, you need to be able to lead your own life. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's so true. And I just real quick, not to cut you off, but want to go back to the part where you say leadership is not about the leader itself, it's about other people. Can you expound on that more? Because I know some people are really they struggle with that. I see for myself where people really struggle with understanding that concept, and they automatically think that they need to either lead from an iron fist or it's not really about the other person. Can you go into more details about that?
Yeah, those people aren't leaders. Those people might have leadership authority. Those people might be managers, but they're not leaders. To be a leader, you need to intuitively feel for others. You need to intuitively want everyone around you to excel, to thrive, to improve. And if you don't have that feeling, you're not a leader. Now, that's not to say that you can't become a leader. I believe that anyone can become a better leader. That's what I spend so much of my time and energy focused on through my writing, my speaking, my podcast. But that's the basic blocking and tackling. So the people who you're referring to who might be in leadership roles, but don't really care about the people who they're quote unquote leading, are not leaders. And those are the people who are the ones who really need this kind of content, because a good leader can listen to my show and pick up a couple of tips and become a better leader. But a manager who's a terrible manager is the kind of person who needs to dramatically improve their leadership philosophy, their mindset, their style, needs to do a 180 or needs to get out of the way. There are a lot of people who can thrive in lots of ways professionally, but aren't necessarily leaders. Just using the example of sports, which is relatable to most of us, certainly something I'm passionate about. There are lots of great athletes who are tremendous individual contributors, but are not necessarily great leaders. You can be a great scorer in basketball, doesn't necessarily mean you're a great leader. So it's really important to delineate the two. And it's really important to recognize that the performance of a great leader isn't measured by how many points does that individual score. It's by the team's win-loss record.
So true. Do you find or believe that leadership is something that you can learn? Some people, that's an argument that I've often heard, that leadership is really something you're born with. Some people feel like you can learn leadership, but you'll never be a true leader. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot. I was actually asked it earlier today. And, are leaders born or are leaders made? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes to both. I think that anyone can become a better leader. If I didn't believe that anyone can become a better leader, if I didn't believe that leadership skills can be developed, honed, improved, I wouldn't be spending as much time and energy as I do on trying to build and develop and grow better leaders. With that said, it definitely helps to have the natural characteristics of a great leader. Now, what are the natural characteristics of a great leader? I don't necessarily think that they need to be the natural characteristics that we think of in the way Hollywood portrays a great leader. But I think that someone who is a great listener, I think that someone who has great empathy, I think that someone who has a tremendous natural ability to connect with people, I think someone who is very mindful, I think that someone with great vision. There are lots of things that are extremely helpful for people in leadership roles that can't necessarily be taught, or maybe can be taught, but it's very helpful if you have that raw ability. But so I think it's a combination of the two.
I like that. And thank you for describing me. No, I'm just kidding. And I often argue and have that conversation with people when it comes to leadership, because unfortunately in my life and experience, I've run into some really horrible leaders. And I'm one of those people that I can't be miserable at home and at work too. So I find other things to occupy my time when I have like not so great leaders that I've been around with.
Monica, that's one of the reasons why I feel so inspired to do what I do, because at the end of the day, developing better leaders isn't really about improving one person. It's not about improving the leader who you're developing. So if someone listens to my podcast and takes some of the tips that are conveyed by one of the leaders who I'm interviewing, or if someone attends one of my talks, one of my workshops, or reads one of my articles and picks up some, guidance on how to become a better leader, I feel happy that they are now improved, that they are now better. But what really gets me going is the fact that they are now better positioned to positively impact the lives of everyone around them. We're talking about an exponential impact that leaders have. You've been, it sounds like, unfortunately, under the guidance of really, really bad leaders. We've all had bad leaders who we've been under. We've all played for coaches who are bad coaches. We've all had bosses who are bad bosses. And I was actually recently a guest on a podcast, and the host of the podcast is a baseball coach. He's a college baseball coach. And one of the things that he and I spoke about off air and then again on air was he was telling me that the greatest leaders who he learned from in his career and in his life were two baseball coaches who he played for, who were terrible baseball coaches, because he learned exactly what not to do as a coach. And I think it's really important when you're in this line of work to always focus on the greater good, to always focus on the importance of just what kind of impact a leader has on every single person that they touch.
I like that. And as you were talking, I started thinking about some of our entrepreneurs that are listening are solopreneurs. But one thing that you said that was huge for those that think, oh, that's not really me because I don't have a team yet, is the part about being influential, like making an impact around those that you connect with. That's the part to me that really makes a really good leader too, is the impact that you have with others. And so what would you say, what are some tips that you would say to that entrepreneur that is possibly a solopreneur about their leadership style and things that they can do to be better leaders?
Everyone should be focused on becoming a better leader. If you're a solopreneur, you're still leading other people. There's a word that I use a lot, maybe because I went to business school for 6 years and it takes a lot of time to unwire the business school jargon, but think about your stakeholders. Think about the stakeholders in your organization. Think about the stakeholders in your company. Now, when you have employees, your employees are stakeholders, but when you don't have employees, you still have stakeholders. Your customers are your stakeholders. Your investors are your stakeholders. There are lots of stakeholders. And you're responsible for everyone you interact with in life. You're always leading in some way. And, even if you don't have people who you're managing at work, you have people who you might have people who you're leading outside of work. So keep that in mind, right? That's kind of something that very often gets overlooked. You could be the leader of your household. You could be the leader of your family, and it could be a husband or wife. You could be co-leaders of your family. You could be an older brother or older sister, and you could be the leader of your siblings. You could be the leader of your cousins. You could be a leader in your community. You could be a leader of your nonprofit. You could be a leader in so many different ways. And, it's not purely about formal leadership alone. When you walk into certain situations, you can walk into a grocery store and be a leader by helping diffuse situations that require a person who has leadership, character, judgment, courage. So I think it's really important to never shirk away from the mindset of being a leader. Everyone should embrace what comes with being a leader. Everyone should learn how to become a better leader, whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or whether you don't manage anyone in any kind of formal capacity.
I appreciate you sharing that, because of the fact that for some of those that are listening, I want them to understand that leadership is something, because some people hear and they're like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about that. It is something that you do have to worry about, because in your life period, if you're living and breathing, leadership is something that you do have to take part in, whether it's, like you said, by yourself or, anybody you're interacting with, you're showing a piece of leadership, and people are always watching the way that you respond and react to things. And it either turns them on or turn them off. Do they want to do business with you or they don't? So it is definitely something as leaders, as entrepreneurs, or however you want to call yourself, as a thought leader, we're all thought leaders that are making a change. It's just something that we definitely want to incorporate in our life and in our business. So I greatly appreciate that. So if you can give us 2 good strategies as a leader, what would those 2 good strategies be?
So, we could go talk about lots of different strategies, but I think that we can talk, number one, we can talk about the importance of leading today, leading in moments of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's extremely important for leaders to prioritize communication. So every leader, in times good and bad, but I think it's especially pronounced in moments of crisis, need to communicate as openly, proactively, aggressively as possible. Right now in the age of social distancing, we're limited in how we can communicate. We can't necessarily meet face to face, but we should leverage every tool at our disposal, whether it's doing a Zoom call like this, or whether it's picking up the phone or sending an email or a text message or chatting on Slack or any other kind of app. In my case, I try to do all of the above. I think that we need to be as proactive when it comes to communication as possible at all times, but particularly times like these. It's also extremely important for leaders to, particularly given how important communication is, to have credibility. And it all starts with being honest. It starts with your word meaning something by you living up to your word. And leaders need to possess a moral compass, and they need to live by a moral compass. And the more truthful, trustworthy, honest, transparent a leader can be, the more responsive that person's team will be to his or her leadership. So those are 2 things that I've been talking a lot about in moments like these. I'll throw a third one at you, which I think is especially relevant and topical, which is the importance of being flexible, the importance of being nimble. I think that leaders always should be mindful of the possibility of change. When you're an entrepreneur in particular, you learn to grow accustomed to change. If there's one inevitability in business, it's that there's going to be some form of change. Markets change, your competitors bring you change, your customers change, things change all the time, good and bad. And as an entrepreneur, you learn how to adapt to change. Leaders need to be willing to embrace change and need to tool their organizations to adapt to change. And we're seeing right now with coronavirus that the companies that are able to pivot, the companies that are able to adapt, the companies that are able to shift their businesses to meet the demands of the moment are the ones that are really thriving. And the ones that have been caught flat-footed are the ones that have been really struggling. So it's extremely important for leaders to themselves be adaptable and flexible, but to also create nimble organizational structures and develop a mindset within their organization that prioritizes adaptability.
Adam, I like all three of those that you gave: communication, flexibility, and the ability to embrace and adapt to change. Those are huge because of the fact that people that I see that are struggling right now are those people that are really having difficulty in those areas. And so those are very good strategies. So if we have someone that do want to connect with you, have you as a speaker, or just even have you doing anything, working with you, period, what are ways that they can reach you?
Try to make it as easy as possible for people. So really just my name, Adam Mendler. So you can go to adammendler.com. You could find me on social media at Adam Mendler. So that's at Adam Mendler on Instagram, at Adam Mendler on Twitter. You can find my show, 30-Minute Mentors, all spelled out, 30minutementors.com. You could also find it on your favorite podcasting app, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, you name it. And I try to make myself accessible to those who are as passionate about what I do as I am.
Yeah, I like that. And I'll definitely make sure that all your contact is in the show notes as well. So that way people can, who are driving and say, oh, wait, what was that? They can actually find it in the show notes as well. And we are also on every platform there is as well. So therefore it's easy for you to be able to go to your platform and look at the show notes and be able to find all of Adam's information. So Adam, before we go, is there anything, if you can leave the audience with one last word, what would that be? Or not even a word, but thought, one last thought. What would that be?
I think it's important to leave with a thought around where we are right now. And I think that it's important for everyone to stay positive. We're in a time when and we talked about this a little bit, but I think we're in a time when it's easy to be negative. It's easy to feel down. There's a lot to feel down about, but I think it's important to drown out the negativity and spend this time as focused as possible on being as productive as possible. We're in a situation that we didn't ask for. We're in a situation that we clearly don't want, that we wouldn't wish upon anyone, let alone ourselves. But we are where we are, and all we can really do is respond. And the best way that we can respond is by pushing forward. And I hope that everyone listening pushes forward and continues to stay positive. And that's my main message.
I appreciate that. And those are great last words, because for me, positivity is a big, huge part of my life and who I am. I'm like, life is too short for anything else but that, and so I pretty much I set my own destiny based on my attitude. So your attitude is your altitude, as they say. Well, Adam, it's been a pleasure having you with me for an episode of Decide to Move podcast. And for all my listeners, please look for Adam. He is a great leader. He has a lot of great knowledge and a lot of great information. Of course, because of timing, we can't talk about all the great things that he does. But he's definitely a person that you do want to connect with. I'm Monica Mbiju, CEO and founder of Decide to Move, and I'm super excited to be with you with another episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Until then, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Decide to Move podcast with Monica M. Bijou. If you are ready to make a pivotal shift and take your destined position in the world, then schedule a free discovery call by going to www.decidetomove.com. For all links mentioned in today's show and to listen to previous episodes, go to www.decidetomovepodcast.com. And remember, we've all been delivered rotten fruit in our past. We can choose to chew on the rotten fruit trying to convince ourselves it's what we want, or we can become the fruits of our labor and create an incredible, fulfilling, and inspiring life and business out of it. You have what it takes to create the life you want.